This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening. This is the Centennial Community Association General Meeting for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. For those of you who are new to our meetings, we have a couple of guidelines that will help us make a successful meeting. When you enter the meeting, you will be muted. Please remain on mute just so we don't hear any background noise. If you have a question during a presentation, please feel free to use the chat box. Our best to answer your questions. Video, feel free to turn that on or leave it off. And this meeting is going to be recorded. We are going to post it to our YouTube account, and you can see that link either by going to our website, eastportland.org//Centennial, or you can find us on Facebook and link to our YouTube account there. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood or new to these meetings, this is an outline of the general boundaries of the Centennial neighborhood. We roughly go from Stark Street at the north all the way down to the north side of Powell Butte, roughly from about 143rd all the way to the eastern border of Portland, which is right around 174th. This evening we have our agenda. It's a little bit shorter than most, but that's okay. We'll get everyone to dinner a little bit earlier. Our first agenda item will be a little bit of discussion about the Portland Charter Commission community listening sessions that are currently happening. So for those of you that might be newer to the city of Portland or how our government works, it's kind of a unique one. This little presentation that I have is based on some research, but of course there are more experts in the community about how this works than I am. So I encourage you to go out and find more resources as well. But in a nutshell, the city of Portland is run by a charter, which essentially almost acts like it's the city's constitution. The last major rewrite of it was in 1913, and that was a significant change because it went from being 15 councilors to 4 that were all at large. They're not responsible to any certain geographic district of the city. And this is fairly unusual. The city of Portland is the last major US city and the only Oregon city that uses a commission system. Now there is the ability to change this charter, but that is in the hands of the voters. And so in order to address this and to allow for changes in the charter, in 2007, a rule was created that a charter commission would meet every 10 years. Currently, the charter commission began in 2020 and is still meeting. There's a series of public listening sessions and opportunities for public testimony. I would be so bold as to say the general consensus of the CCA board is that the Charter Commission really doesn't work well for our city, and it especially doesn't represent East Portland well. We are a portion of the city that historically has had not much representation, and a lot of us believe that part of this is due to the current setup of the city charter. So without getting too much more into it, we just wanted to take a little bit of time at this meeting to kind of bring up the subject to those that attend this meeting or view it afterwards. And we also want to encourage everyone to get involved. There is a link here on the screen you'll see to learn more about the Charter Review Commission with upcoming dates for public engagement listening sessions. I think there's also a link there to a survey that you can fill out on your own. I think the more input they get, especially from East Portlanders, we have more of an opportunity to engage and just change the way our city government works, all for the better. Sherry, are you still here? Oh, you're here, sorry, good to see you. I don't know, I'm gonna throw you on the spot, Sherry. I know this was kind of a subject that you're a little bit passionate about. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to share personally.
Well, there are two things. Number one, the listening sessions, the one that's coming up on the 22nd, it's closed because it's full. And so I think you could go online and look at what they have discussed before and maybe at this one. I did discover that one of the commissioners actually is from Park Rose, Andrew Spear, and I'm trying to reach out to him
Okay,
because he talks about East Portland being neglected in the information I read, a bio about him. And he's also on the Mount Hood Community College Board. So he might be someone we want to get an ear to. What you see is that they're a number of people passionate in some of the things, if you look at some of the discussions they've had, especially about that they don't know anything about the city. So the people responding to this questions, and that the city doesn't reach out to them, as we know. And their issues they brought up were safety, policing, sounds like ours, houselessness, and infrastructure. And they are not, and this was an attempt to get more of the minority folks involved, so they focused on them. And they also talked about city elections, that there's a lack of education about them, the voting process, they really don't know. I know that a couple of the things they're looking at on this charter review is whether our commission form of government with the commissioners running the bureaus is a good way to go, and if there are better ways, and that could be, depending upon what they do, something we vote on eventually. And also looking at what you mentioned before, Dan, whether we shouldn't be represented as the county is by area and not by, representing the whole city. So that's kind of what I looked at when I was looking at it. I know Gail looked at it too, but I think we need to monitor it and speak up, and each member here do that. And I was not very happy that, they have a listening session, but they don't have their technology enough so that we can listen.
and then did you find the other ways to give your input? I noticed there was a survey on there.
And I did the survey, I remember that. And I encourage everyone to take the survey, because that's kind of how this was a question, and, this was a group of of people that met, but the survey asked some of the questions that I just mentioned. So you certainly have, and it's really important because this happens only every 10 years. So if we don't change anything that we're not happy with now, it won't happen for 10 years. And having commissioners run a bureau personally has been very frustrating to me, because you don't know who to contact, and that they get elected and they don't have expertise in the assignments they get.
And bureaus assignments can be switched within a commissioner's term, which leads to more, I would say,
Right.
ability about performance.
And they don't get assigned by a whole, like everything about building in one place, it's different commissioners with different parts. So I think it is important that we monitor that. So I encourage folks to get on.
Yeah, and I'll find that survey link and I'll share it on Facebook, and in our
Okay.
next, we can always also send out a special MailChimp email too, just to encourage people to get involved, because our main voice, or our main mission as a neighborhood association is to give neighbors a voice and connect them to the city and resources. And so I think this is one of our primary goals. All right, I think it's about time to move on to our next subject, and that would be Gail Palmer talking to us about the CCA / Community Neighborhood Centennial Neighborhood Emergency Response Team Community Survey. Gail, are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, let me, I'm going to share just a few slides about the survey results. Hang on. Oh, you have to stop sharing, Dan.
There we go.
Okay. So let's see. Here we go.
Perfect. Hey, Gail, you're muted. Gail, can you speak? I don't know if we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, but I don't think we got anything.
Okay, that's fine.
You get a do-over.
For some reason, this has just happened, I think, with the recent Chrome update for Zoom. All of a sudden, I can't, if I'm sharing my screen, it mutes me. So, so what I'm going to do, you can hear me now. I'm going to try it one more time. If it's not working, I'm going to have to go to my old computer. But let me try this. Can you see me and hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, this is just the opening screen. Didn't miss anybody. As long as you're hearing me, very weird audio. But yeah, so the Community Resilience Survey was conducted from September to December. The four primary questions asked how people were doing with COVID, how they felt, if they were resilient, and what kind of lived experience their families were having or residents were having with the pandemic. And then it asked for what went well and what additional services or community supports they would like to see that they wish they had seen at the time, or they would still like to see, since we are all still living with the COVID experience. We had 70 survey participants, 30 Spanish language responses and 40 English language responses. We made some particular efforts to reach out to Spanish residents, Spanish speaking residents, through some of the community organizations that work with Spanish speaking residents of Centennial. The the Centennial Neighborhood Emergency Team and Centennial were the sponsors of the survey. I'm going to go over just a little bit trending. Basically, the largest number of people by age were in the 40 to 65 group. We had a good response from the 18 to 39 group, and you can see the question was, which racial or ethnic group do you identify with? And many identified with Latinx, white, Black, Asian, Pacific Islander, mixed race, and Arab. So these, and within Latinx, people identified themselves as being from Mexico, being Hispanic, one person from Spain, España, and being Latino. So this is the general breakout demographically from trending survey results. While we weren't as happy with the total number of responses, we were happy that we did get a good cross-section of people responding in age groups. So the resources, the thing that is going to be really important for Centennial Community Association and the Centennial Neighborhood Emergency Team is what kind of resources people indicated they would like to see more of from our groups. And the biggest response was resources to make their apartment home or residence more healthy, safer, more energy efficient. Many of them indicated continual need for financial and emergency assistance, although fewer, if you look for food assistance directly. During the pandemic and continuing on, there has been a good response in the community to provide food for families through schools and through the various food banks and many community organizations who run food pickups still and ongoing from 2020 forward. So the just food assistance had fewer responses. More jobs and training resources, neighborhood transportation. This included sidewalks, more playgrounds, better transportation infrastructure, and of course, more information about all the changes on the streets, just from individual comments. Access to grow land to food. There was a lot of continuing interest in, community gardens, ways in which, especially the apartment dwellers in our area, could get access to grow food. Development of Park Lane Park. And then the early part of our survey, the heat emergency had not happened, so the requests for more emergency heater cooling centers all happened after that event in terms of responses. And then many people in their narrative responses indicated they had connection with people was one of the best ways they were resilient during the pandemic, but they wanted more mental health, more opportunities supported by the community for connection to others, including meeting neighbors, places like playgrounds, art events, block parties. So a number of these types of potential community events were indicated. More health resources, especially air quality concerns were listed in the narrative. And then rental assistance specifically was from 3 support for small businesses. So this is taken the narrative and the places where you could check a particular topic. This is an indicator of, list the CCA and CNET and are some of our other partner organizations like the East Portland Resilience Coalition, Rosewood. We will share these results with them. And this particular slide, I want to say a couple other comments. One is that we had, CCA had done a survey late 18, early 19, where we collected information about how people in our community, how they identified their community with home, in the sense of, do you have a connection with the community? Does it feel like a home living in these neighborhoods? And the most interesting thing to me is I looked back at those 2019 survey results. So we have a little bit of pre and post pandemic results about comments. And almost all of these same topics were indicated as being desirable, or they wanted more information, more access to resources in 2019 as well. Less about food assistance and emergency financial assistance, but all the rest really appeared, especially sidewalks, walking places, playgrounds, art and culture, events in the community, jobs and training, all of that was indicated in 2019 as well. So there's a pretty strong correlation pre and post pandemic with how the community, the needs and desires and things they would like to see happen here. I can't see people, if you have your hand up or if there are any questions. I have a couple more slides and then we can discuss it more. So couple comments. There were many narrative comments, and we are pulling together all of those comments, and the board, CCA board, will get a more thorough report and access to the full survey results at our board meeting next month. So a couple comments. I think people learned to wear masks, social distance quickly. Social change usually takes more time. This person was inspired by moments of care from the community. So there was protect and time to protect at-risk groups. Another comment, this one was translated from Spanish language responses. I had COVID in September. I was in quarantine for 2 weeks. No friends, no family. Multnomah County called and asked if I needed resources. So the organization Familia in Action was able to help with food for a whole month. So these are some somewhat representative comments from the narrative. We will make available all the comments, and we're able with the Spanish language survey results, because our PSU intern, Jason, is also bilingual in Spanish and English. He was able to translate all that data with Spanish language responses. Another comment that I think was also indicated in the survey results is that the community, especially as the pandemic progressed, the community feels like it is already resilient. They are very experienced at surviving many types of disruptions in their lives, but what they want to do is thrive more. So this comment is, this question was hard because it feels like it's putting the hardship caused by COVID, the strain on the individual, suggesting that one would not face hardship during this time if they were resilient enough. In general, the bounce back that I have managed since the fallout of the pandemic is proof enough that I and my family have maintained resilience. So our community, by and large, and this isn't the only place we've heard these comments, that they are already resilient and are survivors and able to survive. However, they want more out of their community than survival and resilience. They want to be able to thrive. So the question for this group assembled today is, how can our community thrive, not just survive or be more resilient? And this comment about effective community engagement, how can CCA and CNET support effective community engagement, which is really the same topic we were just discussing with a change in government, because we have not seen effective community engagement from our elected city commissioners because of many reasons, but not the least of which is the style of government. But can we provide this community with opportunities to build local networks, enhance relationships, and identify underlying concerns and values? So my last slide is, it would be great to take a couple minutes of our meeting today to discuss some of these ideas and responses and get the thoughts of the people who are here. And that's it. Yeah. Let me stop sharing and go back to the, so any thoughts or ideas that anyone would care to share?
I'll go ahead and start too. I know that we're, there are basic ways in which we can support survival, but I think a big thing that has been a need since I got involved with the neighborhood association back in 2019 now, was fostering a sense of community and pride. And I think with Park Lane Park being developed in the next year is a good start at that. I think that another possible way to do that is to actually support more community events. I think Rosewood's Night Out was always great. We've now gone without that. Well, I think we've technically gone without it for 2 years. although Rosewood did find other ways to kind of fill that void. But if there were things that we could do as, CCA to help inspire, a sense of community, would help.
Yeah, I just want to report that the Centennial Net Emergency Team, their board meeting that I attended a week or so ago was that they are committed this year to support the neighborhood night out. It's and I know within the city, Mary Thompson has talked about some upcoming community workshops and things. She's with the Office of whatever that name is, Civic Life. Anyway, I can never get it right anymore. And with this Commissioner Hardesty's office. And so they talked about the opportunity, whether it'll be called Neighborhood Night Out anymore this year, but CNET is planning to support that, and Centennial could support it as well. And as I mentioned, community markets and did a series of community marketplaces in September, and I think that our board could absolutely meet with CNET and Rosewood and a few other organizations about how we can support efforts in this part of town, including Centennial, to find ways that we can do public events that don't just have to happen online with proper health cautions installed.
Hey, Gail, I see that David just joined us. Do you want to, what was that prompt again to lead us into discussion?
Oh, yeah, hang on. I will.
I figured David might have something to share, just to give him fair. Project ideas. Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Yeah, hi, David Lynn. Sorry I'm late. Got caught up with work. Yeah, also a member of the Centennial School Board. So,
David, we were just kind of casually talking. Gail just went through the results of our community survey, kind of reiterating what folks' concerns are, what they've been seeing in the neighborhood, and so we were kind of leading into a little bit of a loose discussion about, what projects, what ways can we engage. Of course, I think about it specifically, as an organization, what CCA is doing. So, if anybody has anything else to share, if not, we can move forward to kind of talking about what we think we're gonna focus on as an organization in 2022.
It's Sherry. I just think that's really good information we have to work from.
Mhm.
And I liked a couple of comments, so I'd like to see some more comments because that's kind of the meat of it. And kudos for you guys to put all the comments together because it's a hard thing to do. Yeah, and so we kind of have a direction a little bit from the survey. Thanks, Gail.
One last comment for me before I go back on mute and take notes is I think that we will be able to share those comments more broadly at the February board meeting, and then obviously go over this list of community things that the community would like to see more resources on as well.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Lorelei.
Okay, I don't know how to put my hand up. Yeah, I'm part of the Midway Business Association, and our border is more from Main and Market, and then over to the south. But we go to 205 to about 174th, so we have a huge district. And we also are looking at doing some kind of event to bring the community together. And I know Division Midway and Alliance, we really started some fabulous festivals along Division since about 2017, but we got shut down because of the COVID. But those events, when I'm hearing about the survey, how, it's really nice to hear that people aren't just focusing on, being shut down all the time, but really wanting to get out there and see the arts again and have a venue for artists and for fun and entertainment and food and just, fun. So supporting the National Night Outs are great. At any time we as a board can work together with the neighborhoods that are in our neighborhoods, I think would be more powerful and we'd get more done. So that's what I wanted to say. And great survey. That was really helpful to hear. No, it was a good one. So thanks for doing that, Gail.
Yeah,
All right.
great. Thank you, Lorelei. I think that's exactly what we should take up is what we can do to lift up the community and especially mental health.
Mhm. All right, well, we're a little bit behind schedule. I'm gonna take on the next section of the meeting. We just wanted to take, this is kind of a nice, the last segment was a nice lead into this, but I just want to think about kind of what our priorities are as a neighborhood association for the next year. So you're gonna have to excuse my clever little alliteration with the use of C's here. But particularly with the help of Gail, we've begun to identify different areas in which we can impact our community and connect and support neighbors throughout the next year. One of the few upsides of the pandemic has been that CCA has actually held on to a lot of funds and we haven't had many expenditures because there were not public events. We were not renting any venue space. We were not supporting, in-person events. And so I think, we're going to be able to use some of those funds, for the upcoming year. So there's 3 general priorities that we've discussed so far. And we're hoping to, in about the next month or 2, to really start refining these and detailing them so that we can actually put them into action. The first one would be community cleanups. This has been probably one of the larger complaints other than, safety, I would say, in the neighborhood, especially throughout the pandemic. And so there have been some organizers within the community, one particular, Jessica, who couldn't make it tonight. And she's done a great job of spearheading cleanups with the help of Solve Oregon, which is an organization that helps organize and put together cleanups throughout the state. So we're going to figure out the best way to support people like Jessica, and then also if there's other cleanups that we can help. Part of this might be too is just having working with the city to get dumpsters put out, and we can do, there might be some sort of junk collection events as part of this. The next one is working with CNET, which is the Centennial Neighborhood Emergency Resilience or Response Team. There's a lot of good work being done with them in regards to just resilience, and it tends to work its way into all sorts of areas of the community. It might be about, I think 2 years ago, we all had a different definition of what resilience maybe meant, and now we're starting to see more extreme nature events and everything that goes along with that. And we've seen a pandemic now, so it's it's an ever evolving term as to what emergency is and what resilience is. And of course, we also want to work with Rosewood, who we've been working with for years, and other organizations that are impacting the community. And then finally, this last section, you'll see I alluded to that in my comments earlier, but supporting community arts, music, or cultural events, in collaboration with the East Portland Resilience Coalition, possibly Rosewood, Portland Parks and Recs, other organizations other there. These are really to provide a service to get people out of their homes, to kind of celebrate being together as a community. As the pandemic wears on, we'll see what the most appropriate way to engage in this will be. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing our best as a board to really discuss these different priorities over the next month and just refine them into actionable goals. And we're going to do our best just to share that back to the community and let you know what we'll be doing. I feel like that was a lot that I just went through in about 5 or 6 minutes. I'll pause here to see if anybody has questions. Looks like we've got a few hands. It's such a small group tonight. Why don't you just go ahead and unmute yourselves? We shouldn't be talking over each other too much.
Yeah, I just wanted to report that MLK Day yesterday, I participated in a community cleanup event that was done with Solve. So I know a little more about directly how Solve works. This was at the, in Hazelwood at the Ventura Elementary School. Their PTA collaborated with Solve. And the most remarkable thing about it is I wanted to mention that because people registered through the Solve site for this MLK Day work party, my daughter happened to organize it, and she had over 80 participants who came into that community, between about 122nd and 102nd, both sides of Stark and Division, Stark and Burnside, Gleason, to clean up, and had a huge response, and a lot of stuff got cleaned up. Solve, of course, provides bags and pickers and gloves and things. But I wanted to ask Lorelei about DMA members. What you have to have on site is a huge, trash receptacle that all of the refuse can be put into. And if it gets filled up, then the organizers have to take extra to the dump. So I just wondered if we could collaborate with DMA for locations in that area where there are dumpsters that we could use, and maybe co-sponsor this kind of thing as well. I know it's already happening up on Division and from a couple groups, but.
Well, it's only been Division Midway Alliance that have organized those. And when I was part of that group, it was always hard to find businesses that had the big containers. They always said, they're always really full. So I'm not sure who they used this last one. But yeah.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that people didn't know about the cleanup because it was through Solve. Have you thought about getting the faith organizations involved? If you know that there's going to be a cleanup, why don't you notify the secretaries or the pastors of churches in the area? So, because we have a huge Hispanic congregation that meets at our church. And they've got a lot of young people. And they're very willing to get out and do things. And I think that if you really want to touch this Hispanic congregate or Hispanic population, if you get in the faith organizations, you know, the churches, you're going to be touching a lot of people that you maybe wouldn't normally.
Great
And
idea.
some
Great idea.
churches, our church, in fact, we go to Lynchwood Christian, which is right next to,
School.
it used to be Lynch Elementary,
Lynchwood
Lynchwood Elementary, and now it's
Hellview.
Hellview. Yeah, it'll always be Lynchwood. Anyway,
I agree with you, Karen.
I've lived here too long.
Yes.
Don't change things on me. But you know, like our church gets involved with the school. Every year we get together and we find out how many teachers there are, and we put together welcome baskets for them. I mean, that's just our church. But we go and we also paint, we do yard work. And we're not a big congregation, but we want to be involved in the community. And if we don't know what's going on in the community, how can we help?
This is Sherry. That's a really good point, because my church, the Lutheran churches out here in East County, we have a work day. It was called God's Work Our Hands. Was it the first Sunday in September? So, you know, when we could collaborate with the other congregations, we did a lot of work. We worked with Human Solutions, we worked with Snow
Oh,
Cap. a number of
absolutely.
them. And I think that that would be a good use. And I'm still on this about the dumpster situation, to get hold of the city, who says they have money coming up, and get some dumpsters out here. Because I know that Jessica's been using a business dumpster for her work that she does on Saturdays on 162nd by 162nd.
Well, we
And
live right on 174th, and we try to keep the garbage picked up, you know, in our general block.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending chore. And during the summer, my husband and I go out and pick up garbage, you know, as for the whole 174 between Division and Powell. That's a lot of work for two people.
yes,
And I might add, all I did was just call the local trash collecting agency, which right now is American Sanitary, and told them what I was doing, and they said, yeah, we'll go ahead and pick up 10 bags for free.
Oh, really?
So all you have to do generally is just call the refuse places, and they'll probably donate trash space.
Oh,
Because I know a dumpster, just a regular 30-yard dumpster, is like over $300.
Well, could you put that in the chat? So the name, I'm sorry, I'm not quite getting it. So if you put that name in the chat and contact information from yourself, so I can get back to you for the notes if that's the case.
Oh, sure.
We shouldn't let dumpsters, but clearly the board's going to have to address how we're going to manage this and who we can inform and collaborate with. And Dan, I don't know, but putting that information in the chat along with your churches and stuff, because there's a lot of churches. So which ones might be willing, maybe useful to have a list.
I've been slowly working on a list of all of the, faith organizations in the neighborhood. I just don't have emails and people to contact there. Would be the next step of the list. But I've got a list of probably 20 different.
I can talk to our pastor and see if I can get his name to you and his email address. And I know he's got contacts all over.
All over,
the area.
yeah.
So, but some of them are outside the boundary, like at a Lutheran church on about 185th and Division, which is outside it's in Gresham, not Portland. But I'm sure they have congregants that are part of the Portland area.
well, that live in the
It's that
area.
church on the south side of Division. I forget the name of it, but I actually spoke with that pastor there a couple months ago because he
On
wanted
the
to know more
east
about
or
it.
west side of Division?
East,
North or south?
No,
On the south side,
174th, I'm sorry.
Said about 185th, I think.
Okay, that's the Lutheran church on the south side. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and he's been great. I forget his name, but we had a nice conversation about community needs right now.
Just a little Lutheran education, that would be one of the more conservative churches. The one I'm in with is called ELCA. So we have our little organizational differences. But if they're willing to work on that, it'd be good, because we certainly are.
And you know, I think that one church would be more than willing to help another church if, say, there was trees that came down or the wind blew off, whatever, you know. One church would be more than willing to go and help another one. Or just, they're just willing to help. We just have to know where.
Yeah, okay. And I think this is also part of a call too, just to actually start speaking with all faith organizations in our neighborhood and getting that line of contact so that when something does come up, they know who to talk to and who to reach out to.
I didn't want to step on toes, but I thought I'd just throw that out.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, this is one of our biggest challenges as an organization, is just getting, a lot of people don't even know we exist.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it, is just getting a network built and knowing who to pick up the phone or who to email when an issue comes up, regardless of what it is. So.
The other piece that could happen is if there are special resources at the churches, our community organization could have that information for people that are interested, such as food.
Well, and I just had a comment about if you either put information in chat or go ahead and contact Dan or at the information at cca.org, you know, the generalized email. That would be great because I think just rounding up all those contacts. Thanks, and I'm capturing your. But the other thing I was interested in yesterday's event was because the Solve site is active, especially with younger folks. We had a lot of people yesterday who don't live in Hazelwood or out here. Because my daughter was asking them how they heard about it, and they'd said, yeah, we just signed up on Solve, never been out here before, we're here to work, and they worked. I was just surprised that there were that many people who came from outside the neighborhood because, of course, you know, MLK Day, work day is kind of well known, but these other work days, we'd love to be able to advertise and collaborate with as well. So thank you for all that information.
This is great. Thank you all. Just to keep us kind of on track, I only have one more announcement for tonight, but I don't know if anyone else has any kind of final comments about what we've just been talking about. Okay. We are, let's see here. So we're trying to, we just want to look forward to the March meeting. I had a conversation with a couple of other people in the community last week. I don't know how much people know about this, but on Mill Main, which runs between the portion that runs from 148th Avenue up northeast all the way to Park Lane Park, it was part of a proposed PBOT project. PBOT was kind of following the lead that since Portland Parks is redeveloping Park Lane, they were going to make some modifications to that section of Mill Main. I believe they generally consisted of removing parking, adding bike lanes in both ways. And then there would not be any addition of sidewalks. I think there's sidewalks along a few properties along that stretch of road, but the plan was to not add any more. And so this, there, among community members, there have been concerns about how this plan has come about, how it may or may not have been effectively communicated to the neighborhood. And so right now we're trying to engage PBOT in a community listening session and presentation about the proposed project. Due to these concerns, the project has been placed on hold. And like, we've mentioned earlier this evening, our whole goal as an organization is to give neighbors a voice and to connect them to one another and the city. And so our hope is that for our general meeting in March, that we will have a presentation likely by PBOT, but then also kind of a listening session too, to see what's really important to folks. So I would just put that on your calendar. Again, that'll be the third Tuesday of March at 5:30, and we'll send out an invite as we get closer to that. With that being said, I don't know, I know we had Sergeant Holbrook here. I'm wondering if anybody has any kind of other business or comments they'd like to bring up before we adjourn.
Well, I just had a few things from the school district.
Oh, great. Go
Very
ahead.
Did you want me to go first or you want the sergeant to go first?
Either or. I don't. All right, you get to go ahead.
I'll let sergeant go first.
Actually, I was going to be here with one of my PBOT counterparts. I was told that there were some concerns about some of the, well, let me introduce myself first. I'm John Holbrook with the Portland Police Traffic Division. I supervise the traffic investigation unit, the major crash team, and the photo enforcement program. So the photo enforcement program, most of you guys are pretty aware of that. Basically, we have fixed speed cameras, radar vans, and red light cameras throughout the city. The traffic investigation unit works with the major crash team. Excuse me, we respond to all the fatal crashes throughout the city of Portland. The traffic investigation unit consists of 4 crash reconstructionists that go investigate the crashes. They reconstruct the crash, try to figure out why they happened, how they happened, was there any criminal conduct involved in it, and go from there. I was told that there was some concerns about some of the recent crashes, and so I wanted to come to talk to you guys to see if there was any questions I could answer, any concerns that you had that maybe I could bring up with some of the leadership in the police bureau. Maybe explain a little bit about what we do and how we do things. So we'll throw that open to you guys. I don't have any set presentation, but I've been with the police bureau since Moses was in diapers, so I kind of have a fair knowledge about how it works.
I know, of course, we're always concerned about safety as a community. I personally haven't heard any kind of really specific concerns. On another note, not to distract us, I did get an interview request from KTU2 TV today for later this week regarding safety, I think, in gun violence, which I think, continues to be a problem in our city. I have not watched statistics and how they've varied. I know that this was a very heated subject. Was it last? Yeah, probably last summer and the summer before.
And now.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, unfortunately, gun violence is not my area of expertise. I do know that I was looking at some numbers just the other day. Shootings, just the number of people who are hurt by shootings was several times higher than it was in 2019. 2020 it jumped, 2021 jumped even more. I don't have any numbers how we are this year compared to last year. So yeah, that continues to be a big major topic. I know that among the police community, it really worries us too, because we're seeing a lot of effects on the police side of it too.
Sergeant Holbrook, this is Sherry. I wondered if there was any impact with accidents and crashes with division having all those changes. You know, the barriers and all of these things that confuses the heck out of me when I'm driving around and encouraging U-turns and all of that kind of thing. Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there were actually a fair number of fatal crashes up and down Division. Last year, I'd have to go back and check the actual numbers. It seems to me that the actual number of fatal crashes on Division has dropped off. Unfortunately, citywide, we had 67 fatal crashes last year, which was 9 higher than the year before, than 2020. So we are trending in the wrong direction. It was, I mean, I sympathize you with driving up and down Division. I understand completely what you're saying. There's been a couple roads that I would share those concerns with. Like I said, I do believe that Division, the fatal crashes have dropped off considerably. However, fatal crashes on other roadways have gone up. So as far as the engineering goes on that, I don't have any say or input as far as that goes. So I wish I had more information as far as that goes on Division for you.
Okay. I knew that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question, not on crashes. I don't know how you track other things like people running lights, complaints from pedestrians or bicyclists on near misses. I know that between Stark and Gleason Stark Division, the major traffic routes for our neighborhood for sure. Erratic driving, of course, has gone up, and people aren't used to all the changes, but I think they're getting there. But I just noticed that the number of near misses for pedestrians and bicyclists, and also people running red lights, whether that's pandemic related, frustration related, or simply if you have any insight from discussion around your shop. I think we all get frustrated by those incidents as we see them, but I just wondered if those kind of statistics, if those are kept by your shop or another place.
Yeah, so the near misses, when somebody is not actually hit or hurt, we have no way to track those. If we did, the number would be astronomical. Last February, unfortunately, the police bureau effectively disbanded the traffic division. Over the past 25 years, our traffic division members have been reduced. The numbers of officers assigned to the traffic division have been reduced steadily. Last year, we were down to a combined total of 25 officers, which included 1 photo enforcement officer, 4 crash reconstructionists, and 20 officers who were dedicated to enforcement activities. In February, the police bureau moved those 20 officers back to the precincts because the precincts were so short-staffed. They were just being run ragged by 911 calls that we moved those guys back to the precinct. So now really the only enforcement action we have, aside from the precinct officers, any dedicated enforcement is done through overtime grants that we have acquired through ODOT. So as far as statistic numbers, our citations have dropped drastically over the past year. That is mainly a direct result of moving our dedicated enforcement branch back to the patrol division. And our patrol guys, their primary emphasis is responding to 911 calls, and they do traffic enforcement in their spare time. And I say spare time around quotes because when I got hired in 1996, we had 1,000 officers and 500,000 people living in the city. Today, we have closer to 780 officers and 650,000 people living in the city. So you can imagine the call load has gone up while our officers' numbers have dropped. So unfortunately, some of the statistics that we do keep are really skewed. We can't respond to as many crashes as we used to. The traffic enforcement or traffic investigation unit used to respond or investigate a lot of hit and runs. Last year, we had approximately 7,000 hit and runs, and nobody assigned dedicated to investigate them. So it's a long way of saying that we don't have any reliable statistics. And usually we get our stats from DMV that, because if you're involved in a crash that has $2,500 damage or more, you're required to report it to DMV. And from what we have seen, they're about a year behind. So 2020 was the last year that they had numbers, and the crash numbers had risen over 2019. Part of that was pandemic related because there was more, and there were fewer cars on the road, so the cars were actually going faster. Surprisingly, our fatal crashes increased in 2020 during the pandemic time. And I think that can be directly attributed to a lot fewer cars on the road and a lot of those cars just simply moving a lot faster. I don't know if that answers your question, or I don't have any hard numbers for you, but yeah, we've seen an increase in crashes.
Yeah, so I guess I don't know what would be most useful that a community organization like we could do. I know everybody's concerned about safety, not just their homes, their families, their roads, their cars, all that stuff. But I don't know, what would be, if you had one suggestion to us?
Being in the traffic division, obviously, my focus is traffic safety related. And statistically speaking, probably the most dangerous thing any one of us are going to do today is get in a car and drive to work, or even walk down the road to buy a gallon of milk or a sandwich or something. Last year, out of the 67 fatalities, we had 29 of those were pedestrians. As working with our reconstructionists, I get to see how dedicated those guys are and the work that they put into those. I would probably say that we as a city need to re-educate people, and particularly pedestrians, about safety. Walking down the road, we feel we're very safe. I like to bicycle, I like to run, I drive a car every day, so I'm kind of in all three of those worlds. As a pedestrian, and as I'm out running on the road and whatnot, I feel like I'm very, very visible. Actually, if you're driving down a road, you are not able to see pedestrians nearly as well as the pedestrian thinks you can see them. We had an incident a couple of years ago that really drove this home to our reconstructionist, where a bicyclist was hit and killed by a garbage truck. And our reconstructionist went out on site the same time of night. It was in the middle of the night, to see what the lighting situation was, how far the bicyclist would be visible. And there's a way that they do it so that they can adjust for lighting conditions and whatnot. But it really woke them up. The one officer got on a bicycle and rode down the road. The other officer was in a car driving down the road. He knew where his partner was. He said he couldn't see him until he was almost right on top of him. Yet the officer on the bicycle said, I thought I was really visible. There were street lights out. It really felt really well lit. So my message would be that if you're a pedestrian, just be aware the cars cannot see you nearly as good as you think they can. So just be very, very careful when you're crossing the road, because a lot of times cars don't see until they're right on top of you, and physics then takes over. If there's a reaction time, a perception reaction time, and then there's a certain amount of time that it takes the car to actually slow down and stop. So kind of what we all teach our kids when they're little, you know, when they're 5, 6 years old, look both ways again, and then walk. I think that is probably one of the biggest investments in safety that we can pay, because you know, I'm not a small guy. I'm about 6'3" and weigh more than I should. But if I get in a fight with a car, I'm going to lose that fight every day. And so ultimately, I'm responsible for making sure I get myself home safely. So that's what I would probably suggest as far as safety goes. Encourage people, the more we get out and walk around, just to be very, very careful when we're around moving cars.
All right, any other questions for Sergeant Holbrook?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah, Sergeant Holbrook, what determines where the photo radars are placed?
So when we're looking at the fixed photo radars and the red light cameras, those are pretty well permanently placed.
Well, I mean, the mobile ones in the van.
Oh, the mobile ones. Okay. We actually look at a lot of different ways. The state law limits us to only 4 hours at one location in a 24-hour period. So we look at where the crashes are at. We try to focus on high crash corridors. If you're not familiar with those, that's basically a roadway that has a 25% higher crash rate than other roads. So the major thoroughfares to the city, 82nd, 122nd, Division, Powell, those roadways. We do get requests from citizens periodically, different community groups, sometimes just individuals, sometimes there's schools, saying, hey, we're seeing a lot of people just driving really fast, crazy through our neighborhood. Can you come and sit down and run the radar through here for a while? So I'll call up our guys and say, hey, can you pay special attention to over here or over here? So there's a lot of factors that we look at. We try not to just close our eyes and throw a dart at the map and say, oh, that's where we're going today.
Who would we call, Sergeant Holbrook?
That would be me.
Oh, really?
And if you
Okay.
want, I can give you all my desk phone number. And if I'm not there at my desk, leave a message. I try to call everybody back as quick as I can. And that phone number is 503-823-2151. 823-2151.
Yeah, because we as a church in a community, because I scavenged everybody up and down 174th and had them come to a meeting. I think the police were there. I know Peabot was there. Centennial High School was there. And we asked that they reduce the speed limit on 174th. They finally did so. But and along with that, we asked that they put sidewalks in, because there's a lot of kids, a lot of cars parked on 174th, and kids don't have sidewalks. So they go around the cars onto the pavement to get to school, because you have to walk if you're too close to the school for the bus to pick you up. And so we asked for sidewalks. That hasn't happened. And I'm not holding my breath. It probably won't happen in my lifetime. Because I understand you have to complain, and you have to be put on a list. I think with Peabot, and then they decide who squeaks the most, or who's politically connected the most, to figure out where they want to put sidewalks. Anyways, so it's a double line on 174, double yellow line. They're not supposed to pass yet. And it's my street. I do the speed limit. And there's so many people that have passed me. It's unreal. And so, it's hard to catch somebody doing that, but I know that person who's passing me has got to be going over the speed limit. So I've only seen the photo truck, and they usually park in front of the school and no place else. So it's a 20-mile-an-hour zone there during school time.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll focus on the schools, because that's where obviously the kids tend to congregate around there. And we get a lot of complaints around schools specifically. So a lot of our officers will concentrate around there. Are there other places up and down 174th? Because I worked out at East Precinct for a number of years, so I'm fairly familiar with out there. Where up there would you like to see us concentrate for the next little while?
Well, it's a little bit north of the school of Pal Butte School. It's where Kelly comes out onto 174th,
Yeah.
and it's a fairly, you can't see hardly at all to the right because of vegetation, and to the left, this is going because Kelly comes out from the westbound Kelly. It's tees into 174th. Anyways, and looking north, there's a hill there, and you can't see, and people just, and there's been more than a few accidents there at that corner, at that intersection. And I don't know if they were fatality accidents or not, but I know probably people have been T-boned quite a bit there.
Okay. We have one officer that's dedicated full-time to the radar van, and we have a bunch of others that do it on overtime in their spare time. So I will send out a message to them, ask them if they can kind of concentrate in that area for the next little bit. Hopefully that'll give you a relief. The city is very large. We only really have 2 vans. Like I said, one is out all the time and the other is out as time permits. So I'll see ask them to kind of pay some more special attention to that area.
And sometimes it might, because I understand sometimes if they put the indicator that you're going this fast, maybe putting some of those out might help too. So people recognize, oh, Jiminy Crickets, I'm going over the speed limit, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, we used to have a trailer that had a sign out there, and I don't know when they got rid of that, but it's been gone for a number of years. And those speed reader boards, I think, do pretty good. I know Peabot's trying to put more of those around the city. Unfortunately, they don't have enough to fit all the demand. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And I 100% agree with you on sidewalks, especially with kids walking around. It rains a fair amount here, and I'm guilty of this too. You're obviously much safer if you're not on the sidewalk, but if you're not on the roadway. But if there's no sidewalk, I don't want to walk through the mud. And I think most school-age kids are the same way.
I hear you. Yep.
All right, well, it's already 6:47. We actually are going towards our usual 7 o'clock deadline. Sergeant Holbrook, thank you for attending. If anybody else has any other questions, would you mind, do you have an email address to put in the chat?
Yes, I can do that really easy.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me come. I appreciate it. If you guys honestly have any questions or anything, feel free to email me, call me. I will try to return everyone's emails and phone calls as soon as I can too.
David, do you have time for a little quick Centennial School District update for us?
Absolutely. And I'll try to be quick. And sorry, my video isn't working tonight. So you just get my picture. The primary thing is please support your schools, support your local teachers. If you can do anything to support your local school, they are in dire need of it. There's been a lot of tough choices that the school board is having to make and the administration is having to make, especially in terms of COVID. They're doing it on an individualized basis in terms of school to school instead of a district-wide decision, say to go back to remote learning. And we did hear that our first school had to go back to remote learning for a combination of COVID and complete collapse of any kind of staffing backup for the teachers that were out because of COVID. So that has been really taking up most of, the controversy or the attention of a lot of people. We are taking the last of the public comment on the school redistricting. If anyone has community comments on how they district the school districts, the individual elementaries and stuff like that, the decision has already been made that Oliver in our community is going to be moved to a middle school. And so that is going to happen next year. We are taking comment on kind of how that transition happens. And maybe related to the earlier conversation, we are hearing a lot about safe routes to school for kids, particularly because our community has such little sidewalks, revitalizing play fields. And so as Oliver transitions to a middle school, I think it will be have an opportunity for us around the new Park Lane Park that should get moving, hopefully soon, as well as the development that we're going to be seeing on Stark and 162nd. I think that really provides us with an opportunity for some community visioning and what we want to see and how we can increase the community involvement between the schools and the neighborhood and the association. Other than that, personally, the short sessions coming up and political campaigns are gearing up. So I'm always jumping on those if people have questions. Of course, my number one issue has always been police reform, and it continues to be police reform. And if people saw this week, our police bureau and leadership was a national embarrassment in the news again. And this sets back all of our efforts that we continue to do to build trust and public safety in our communities. So I'll be continuing to work on any of those issues if anyone's interested.
Okay, thank you. All right, yeah, it's our own son was got called. We got the call last night at 9:30 that school was not happening at Powell Buick this week. So we're continuing to stay on top of that. All right, well, this has been a good, I did not think this meeting would last this long, but that's good. We all got stuff to talk about and made some connections. Unless there are any other kind of final comments, definitely want to thank you all for attending, taking time out of your busy weeks to attend this. And this meeting will get uploaded hopefully in the next hour to YouTube, so we can make sure to share with people who weren't here. So thank you all for attending. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in 2 months.
Thank you, everybody.